This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you very much for joining another GoDaddy Pro EMEA Meetup. Today is 15th of August, a very hot day. It's apparently worldwide, with all our participants letting us know how hot it is in their cities. And we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic. And the topic is web security an investment or a cost record center? Today, we have great speakers with us. Crystal, hello. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
Nice to have you. Kara, thank you very much.
Hello.
Nicola, James, Yelena, Rob, Frederick, and all the people that will join us. Thank you for joining us today. So without further ado, let me introduce our speakers. I will start first with Crystal, because Crystal is first time with us as a speaker at this event. So Crystal, would you mind just letting us know a little bit about your current assignment that you have and what you do? Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you. And thanks for having me. My current day-to-day is that I run the security business operations for GoDaddy, and that does include our Sucuri brand, in addition to the GoDaddy offerings for security. And so I also have the Managed WP brand under my group, I guess you could say. So I get to work with a lot of fantastic folks in web development, agencies, and small business, and get to learn about what they're doing while online. Most of my experience over the last decade has been in security, specifically for Sucuri. So I will be pulling on all of that experience and customer feedback over the years to give you guys some insights.
That is awesome. Thank you very much. So, Kara, we see you again. It's been a while since you've been last time at GoDaddy Pro EMEA Meetup. I'm sorry about this, but there are so many people that we also had to.
It's all good. I'm happy you thought of me. I was very excited when you hit me up for it. So.
Yes, I mean, I couldn't actually avoid you to be part of this topic, because last time when we spoke, you and we spoke about how much a hack costs. And again, we're talking about investment in security. So just give us a little bit of a brief intro. I mean, maybe you can even show us your a presentation that you prepared, because you have an intro there as well. But you could also give us an intro about yourself if you'd like prior to that.
Yeah, I'll give a brief intro to myself, and then if you want me to, I can absolutely show my show my presentation here. Basically, yeah, I've been working in tech for many years at this point, and then I joined Sucuri about. Oh, sorry about my dog. I joined Sucuri a couple of years ago. Goodness, it's been since 2018, so I've been here for almost 4 years. And now I am a supervisor for a team of analysts that remove malware from websites. And I've been doing that for almost, goodness, about 2 years at this point.
Nice. And for today's meeting, you prepared for us a number of stats outlining the importance of investing in security. We will also share some other stats later, but would you mind just running through this piece of information so we can continue and build the conversation on top of it?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see here. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Okay, so basically, yeah, this is the question that we're answering today, or that we're looking at. Is web security an investment or a cost center? So this is basically just the cost of being digitally attacked. So this is me. I've been with GoDaddy for about 9 years total. I left for about a year and then came back to be in security. Been security for about 3.5 years, currently a supervisor. The funny thing is I actually have my BA in Spanish, so I don't actually have a tech background. But I've been working with troubleshooting WordPress for over 7 years. I've got a lot of experience dealing with it, and there's just some contact info for me. So I just want to start out with a couple of facts and figures, some very interesting things that I found. So first of all, cyber attacks have absolutely grown in number. I think we all know that at this point. In 2021, the global cost of cybercrime exceeded $6 trillion. So the figures came from CUSIT, Italian Association for Information Security. CUSIT estimated a loss of $1 trillion in 2020. So you can kind of see that it has grown quite a bit just over the course of a year. And of course, a lot of that came from things like the pandemic. And with the pandemic came everybody being at home, being on their computers a lot more, all that kind of thing. And so here's also over the course of a couple other years. So from Cybersecurity Ventures 2017 report, they thought the damages would cost the world about $5 billion in 2017, up from 325 million in 2015. So that's about it's an increase of about 15 times in just 2 years, which again, very impressive. And the damages in 2018 were estimated about $8 billion. And in 2019, the figure rose even more to 11.5 billion. So as you can see, I mean, it went from 11.5 billion to about $1 trillion in 2020. So again, just over the course of a year, massive increases. And then Cybersecurity Ventures expected that a business would fall victim to a ransomware attack about every 11 seconds in 2021. This was up from about every 14 seconds in 2019. And this does make ransomware the fastest growing type of cybercrime. So particularly since ransomware, and there's all these things that have cropped up for ransomware as a service, all these ransomware gangs, frankly, all these kinds of things. I did focus on a little bit more on like data breach, statistics for data breaches in particular. And then I did also want to go over a couple of other facts and figures that were interesting, I thought. So Cybersecurity Ventures predicted that the cyber insurance market will grow from approximately 8.5 billion in 2021 to 14.8 billion in 2025. And then by 2031, it'll exceed $34 billion. So this is the cyber insurance market. So now we've got insurance, you got health insurance in the United States, you got auto insurance, you got all life insurance, all that kind of thing. Now we've got cyber insurance. And this is based on the compound annual growth rate of 15% over an 11-year period. So from 2020 to 2031, that's how they calculated it. And then a couple other things that I thought were interesting. So the average total cost of a data breach, and this all came from the 2022 report from IBM. The average total cost of a data breach in United States dollars is $4.35 million. So that's the average. So of course you have people that had to pay way more to deal with this kind of thing, and people who, did have to pay quite a bit less. But since we're also talking about investment, whether or not it's an investment or a cost center, something that was very interesting to me. So of course you have the total cost of the data breach on average, 4.35 million. But if you look at this, here's the average cost savings associated with a fully deployed AI and automation, USD 3.05 million. So already you have saved a huge chunk of money off of that average. If you also have an incident response team and a regularly tested incident response plan, people on average saved $2.66 million. So again, that's just the average. People save way more. Some people did save way less. And again, back to how much it costs. This is the average cost of a ransomware attack. And this does not include the amount of ransom that they paid itself. That's 4.54 million United States dollars. So again, just a few facts and figures to look at, so then the question again becomes, should we invest in cybersecurity measures or not? The answer, I think personally, is yes, but we'll move ahead. So these are a couple other things that I found. So this is a cost of a data breach by country. So 2021 versus 2022. Healthcare, you can see the healthcare industry has actually been for the last 12 years the highest, has had the highest amount of costs for data breaches. Financial industry, quite a significant amount less, but still number 2. Pharmaceuticals, technology, and energy. If you think about it, some of these things make sense, right? Healthcare, you have all kinds of information about people, like all kinds of information about people. Financial may also make sense because you also get just straight up the financial information, which is really what people are after. Pharmaceuticals, technology, all that kind of stuff. And then I also thought it was interesting to just kind of look at the breakdown by country. So United States, again, has been at the top for a number of years. Canada was actually next, which I thought was very interesting. I did not expect Canada. UK, Germany, and Japan. I definitely expected Japan to be on there, and the UK. Did not necessarily expect Germany on there, but they have quite a bit of industry as well, of course, so why not? Any questions about these figures or anything?
Yes, please. I would really like to hear if there are any questions. And I just need to make an observation. Germany is actually down, and Japan, they're actually down with their
Yes.
figures. So that's
Mhm.
great. I mean, I applaud to these countries, seriously.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, seeing Germany went down was also not overly surprising, and the same with Japan. I visited Japan many years ago, and I always found it fascinating that for such a country we think of as just so technologically advanced, they are a very, very cash-focused economy, which makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Because cash is very hard to hack. It is not nearly as difficult to hack a card, for example,
That's
as we
true.
all know.
100%. And another thing, what I want to mention about the previous slide is that it seems that personal data is very important because pharmaceutical companies, they are, financial, healthcare, they all are actually dealing with personal data, right? Technology more or less, energy more or less. But this is very interesting. Is there any questions from the audience, please? No? All right. Let's move. Let's move next.
All right. Okay, so, and these are just some of the ways in which it costs you. So I'll kind of go over what ransomware is, and customer trust is another way. Oops, sorry about that. That was really the majority of it. Some of that other stuff is actually, I apologize, some outdated information, but things like the Equifax and the Marriott breaches were very interesting, I thought. But basically, what ransomware is somebody's able to get in, some kind of malicious actor gets into your system, takes all of your files and all of your information and encodes it in such a manner that you cannot decode it. And then they send a message saying, hey, we've got your stuff, you need to pay this amount of money, and then you can have it back. Any attempts to get in and decode it, if the malicious actor figures out that you're doing this, oftentimes they will just delete your information and that's it. You have to figure out how to recover it. You have to, deal with the fallout from that, which is, quite frankly, a lot of what the costs are, not just the ransomware, but the fallout from that. So there's a lot of things that you have to deal with ransomware, and it's a pretty scary thing because, again, you have all these gangs that are ransomware as a service. They basically sell these kits to other malicious actors to say, hey, go forth and have fun with this new toy that you have, and that's what they do. Interesting. So this is sort of one of those things that's a case-by-case basis. So working in security, we always tell our customers, don't pay the ransomware. Don't pay the ransom. Because then in essence, you are working effectively with, if you will, terrorists. I think that some of these gangs have actually been recognized as terror organizations, or maybe that was not quite the ransomware as a service gangs, but there were a couple of malicious actor gangs that had done that. So it really depends on the business need. There are a number of businesses that will just simply pay, get their stuff back, and then everything flies under the radar. Nobody knows anything. So personally, I would say don't, particularly if you have things like backups, if you have an incident response plan, if you've got all these kinds of things, because the fact of the matter is you're paying these people and then they can take that money and then continue to do this work. So the government, oh, wow, okay. There you go. And a lot of government entities will just simply pay the ransom because they may not have the ability to put everything back in place. They may be too scared to not pay the ransom. I mean, it's a ransom, right? The whole point is that people are scared and do what they need to do in order to get the information back. So I will say the question of recommending paying out hackers ransomware, it's a difficult decision. I think that it's yes, also that, Rob, thank you. That's actually a really good point I was going to get to. It depends. It's a decision that has to be made by those that were attacked by the ransomware. They have to figure out that cost benefit analysis. They have to figure out whether or not this is actually something that they can not only afford, but again, cost benefit analysis. And actually, yeah, Rob, to your point, even for the websites that we clean up, a lot of times what we'll say is, you're going to want to restore from backup, and then they send back in a ticket to us saying, hey, we were hacked again. because they didn't test their backups. And one of the things that people don't realize is that a lot of times the backups will have been infected because malicious actors will infect the site for months before they actually even act on the backdoor that they put in. Well, we spent all the money from the budget. Fair enough, Maya. Fair enough.
No, it's really seriously. I mean, there's something going on. It's either the relevant bodies or authorities are not, investing enough or not understanding enough. But it seems that security is important. Now, moving from this hard psychological approach, which is like how to deal with ransomware requests, I would like to go back to Crystal and ask Crystal, now that we know the threats in the web world, could you tell us more what type of problems Sucuri is resolving and trying to offer a solution for web developers and designers?
Absolutely. Thank you. So Sucuri has been around for 10 plus years, and what we originally set out to do was provide a cost-effective solution to mom and pops that were online, potentially, unaware of the risks associated with having an online presence. And that started with malware cleanups. And as we found over the years that we can 100% clean your website, provide you action items for after the cleanup. However, not everyone takes those after cleanup actions to ensure that you're reducing the potential for an incident in the future. And then what happens is they become reinfected. And that was what was occurring with many of our customers, was just a reinfection rate that was, really creating a bad customer experience. We as tech professionals can know absolutely like, oh, well, duh, like you didn't change your passwords, or you didn't use least privilege as a methodology. You just went back out on the web and didn't check, it's like, oh, my car stopped working, but all of a sudden it's good because I paid some guy, but I'm not going to worry about like the maintenance stuff that he told me to do. I'm just going to keep going. And then it happens again. That's very similar to how most people over the last decade have thought about security. Like, oh, I cleaned it up. I'm good. Life's going to be great. I won't have to worry about it again. And that became the evolution for our firewall. And Sucuri's firewall is different than many other firewalls. One, it has a built-in CDN. We understand that performance is a necessity for security, and nobody wants their site to be slower because you're being secure. And so what a WAF CDN allows customers to do, or what the Sucuri WAF CDN allows customers to do, is not only think about those elements that a performance WAF and CDN does, but also we created something with security first in mind. And so we have a group of researchers and individuals that keep a robust signature database up to speed, looking ahead of the threats, trying to ensure that our firewall blocks all potential attempts. And what's fabulous about the implementation of a Sucuri firewall is that it does virtual patching. And that sounds like super cool, right? Virtual patching. But let me just break it down into like simple terms. Is virtual patching is for those folks that maybe you don't have, maybe you paid that developer to make your website, and you're no longer paying that guy to maintain your website. And thus, you don't know how to maybe update a plugin or implement a fix because there's been a vulnerability with something that's on your site. Virtual patching essentially gets you up to speed or patched in a virtual sense. So while that firewall is implemented, it's okay that your site maybe is still running on an older version or a plugin hasn't been fully updated. Our firewall is working to prevent that. And so over the years, this comprehensive solution also, backups is like a fundamental component of of what you need to be online, but it's a holistic approach. We have monitoring in place to ensure that we know what's happening with the website at all times. If there is an incident, because hey, stuff's going to happen, we have our malware removal process, and then the preventative measure. Let's put that firewall in place and then give you a really comprehensive solution. And so over the years, we went from working with the small mom and pops over to freelancers, agencies, and enterprises. We now, a big portion of our business is done to dev and web agencies, providing them a solution that's cost effective, while also, you might work with a client today, but you may not work with them in 3 months. So you're able to swap out businesses that you're working for as an agency. So we've created a really great solution for those types of folks online.
Thanks. I'm sorry, I was watching the chat. It's really exploding.
No worries. Yeah, I saw it blowing up, but I'm like on one track mind, trying to stay focused. Let's see. Is there any questions for us?
Yes. Is there anyone that would like to ask something before we continue with next question? All right. I'll wait, or perhaps you can always just address it in the chat and just let us know if you'd like to be on screen. So speaking of the service and the solution that you offer, Cara has been for how many years already in security supporting? Cara, tell us please, how would you describe your day? What you could tell us about the security services, communication channels, time zones, type of work that you do, what type of problems you solve daily, and something more interesting. Let us understand how that works behind. What's the back end of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a supervisor for about 2 years. I've been with security for about 3.5. But my time as an analyst is really going to be the more interesting part of this. Basically, day-to-day basis, people write in and say, hey, and by write in, I mean they send in a ticket to us and they say, hey, my website got hacked, or I'm on a block list, or something like that. And so when we get the ticket, we take a look at the website as it currently is. We see if they have any, messages for us. Is there something in particular we're looking for? Do they just want us to take a look at the whole site? And then, we have tools that we use that help us, compare, the signature databases that Crystal was talking about. We use those with our tools, and then it basically just runs and says, hey, you might have something problem here, you might have a problem there, and then we take these things that it shows us and then we look at them and we say, okay, is this a problem? If it is a problem, then we get it cleaned, and then we can do things like submit the website to blacklist. So those big red warning signs that you get on some websites from Google that says this site is hacked, or this site is a problem, don't go. We help clean those up. We help make sure that people can have their websites shown and make sure that things look better. Also, credit card stealers is another big thing that we look at, particularly now that WooCommerce has become a lot more prevalent in the e-commerce space. That's something we've started looking at a lot more and seeing a lot more credit card stealers that are tailored for WooCommerce. And so we get those cleaned up and get them added to our database of malicious signatures.
That's cool that you mentioned Google. Maybe we can ask James about certain issues that he ran into in Google. Tell us, James.
Yeah, well, I suppose I wasn't dealing with too much people who had their websites compromised. Prior to Google, I had it the whole time. And actually, you did use security. I found a scanner with the security, your scanner that goes through websites. It doesn't even have to be WordPress. Was it? I can't remember. Did you had a website interface as well that you could scan websites, if I recall?
Yeah, so SiteCheck is a free tool that scans over 1 million websites typically a month. People are submitting their sites, and it is a remote-based scanner. So it sees essentially the things that Google would see when it comes to or crawls your website, and alerts you to any incidents or issues that potentially could be there.
That was an excellent one for me when I had clients. This was before Google, but when I had clients who were hacked, I found that to be excellent, really, really excellent. But in Google, yeah, I don't really deal with that side of things. There's a huge team that does, but I'm not really part of that team. So
Then you must be very happy. I'm sure that clients, when they approach support in panic, trying to understand what is happening to their website, to their data, possibly whatever they're doing online, I think it's not easy for them to understand and act in the proper way. So I wanted also, I mean, now that we have understood the security kingdom and how it works, I would like to move to the business approach to security and malware removal tools. I will also share the screen. Just give me a second. Here it is. This is the LinkedIn poll that I ran last week. And the question was how much money small and medium companies spend on cybersecurity per year. Why I think this was important. I think this was very important because there is like since pandemic time, there is so much small and medium companies, you know, popping up on internet, and people are trying to build their brand and invest, and you know, they have some technology they're promoting, or they have a different type of services that they offer. But if you see from the result, we got 66 votes. And if you see that that 30%, almost 30% of them, 26% of them, they invest less than 1,000. Only like above 15%, 17%, they invest more than $1,000, and then the rest people are even almost 27%. They don't invest at all in security. So this is, for me, I wasn't expecting this type of a result, to be honest with you, because I was thinking that it would be much more like people would invest more in less than $1,000. So speaking of this, I wanted to understand if we talk about large scale companies or small and medium companies, the investment in security is high for sure. But what is the return of investment on that particular business decision, especially with big companies, right? If there are no attacks, further investment could be considered as unnecessary cost as well. I mean, from the logical point of view. So I wanted to ask the question, what is preventing small and medium companies and individuals in business to allocate the budget to secure their website or provide security updates? I mean, we've seen from the LinkedIn poll that it's almost less than $1,000. It could be even hundreds of dollars, but it's not happening. Can you tell us why?
Sure. So as we all know, working, no matter what business size-wise that you work in, budgets are always something that's top of mind. And at any turn, you're seeing a reduction in budgets across marketing, across IT, across, you know, infrastructure, and that could be due to the state of the world, economics, inflation, you name it. So there's lots of contributing factors that go into how companies situate the money that they intend to spend. And IT budgets are one that are large in nature. And so those large budgets are usually the ones that get cut the most. But what we're seeing is that while budgets are decreasing, the actual spend associated with IT security is increasing. So there is a mental shift in what is the right expense in terms of that. And so, yes, we saw some really, really large numbers early on that Kara showed you. And those for some of us are like non-fathomable, like $4.3 million, $1 billion, that you just like, yeah, that's not me. That's never going to happen. I run a simple, you know, cupcake shop online, and I just had to go online because that's what's, you know, that's a necessity of today's business. I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to be targeted. And so that's where I think that we have to think about that, is that many people believe that attacks are attacks of target, when actuality, the majority of the attacks that happen online are an attack of, you know, easeability. These are quote unquote like bot armies that are looking for an easy target, and I'm going to use target in a different way, but they're just looking for anything that potentially is compromised. They run a script. They know that, hey, WordPress, 2 point whatever, it still has a vulnerability, and we've got hundreds of thousands of people still running on that version. Boom, I'm going to deploy this script and I'm going to go after those sites. I mean, so that's kind of the version of targeted that occurs. And I'll speak specifically to WordPress. The reason why WordPress has so many incidents is not because it's not secure. So let's start there. It's not because it's not secure. It's simply because it represents the largest portion of those folks online. And so that's what's happening today. But for small and medium-sized businesses, the investment can be as little as a few $100s a year that can put you in that category of a preventative natured business. And so like we think of, or the way that customers come to us is in two categories. They're either reactive, and this is the significant portion of folks that are coming to us. I'd say like 80+% are in a reactive state, meaning that an incident has occurred and thus they are now reacting to it and needing to clean it up. And there are wonderful solutions out there, such as us, such as the integration within GoDaddy and other places that allow you to then only spend a few $100s to get that work completed. But if it's something like Kara mentioned of ransomware, or you never had a backup, or your hosting backup is also compromised, it can be a lot more expensive. And so we have to shift our mindset from a reactive situation of this is like not going to happen to me, or when it happens to me, I'll figure it out, to a preventative mindset, meaning, hey, for a small nominal amount, and for many, it can be very small. And if you're running a business that's not making much money quite yet online, there are plugins, there are different tools that can at least give you a component of security to reduce your risk, a monitoring element, something that alerts you, which then you can go in and work on it. So I don't want to say that money should stand in someone's way of having a secure site. There are different solutions depending upon your level of funds available, is kind of the way that I come about to think about security, is that just because you're small doesn't mean that you should be barred from the conversation of having these tools. You don't need to have a full infrastructure. You don't need to have a SOC team. You don't need to have a whole crew of IT professionals. You can employ a simple solution for, like I said, a few $100s a year that gets you that dedicated team of resources that will do all that work for you. So working with those folks is critical.
Yeah, thank you very much. I see the chat is really live as well, and I can see a lot of nodding from Rob coming in. Rob actually, I think, confirmed most of the things that you said. So if there is anything that you would like to add to this, it would be great.
I actually did want to piggyback a little bit off of what you said there, Crystal. So yes, absolutely. One of the things that people don't think about is sort of the long-term implications of being hacked. And one of those things, what I've talked about before in past talks, is the cost of customer trust. So if you are notified by your payment processing company, and we get a number of these, a lot, where people are like, hey, I was told that credit cards are being stolen off of my website. I need help with this. So people will recognize that their credit cards got stolen on your website. And that is a problem for customer trust. So one of the things that you need to look at if you're being reactive or even proactive, preferably proactive, of course, but one of the things you need to look at is, what is the average cost? What is the average amount of money that is spent on your website? And how many customers do you generally have? And then if something happens like a breach, where and anymore, like, people don't really understand what a breach is versus like their credit card being stolen. Of course, they are two very different things, or can be two very different things. But all people need to know is that your website got hacked and suddenly their trust in you is gone. So they may not purchase anything on your website for who knows how long. And if that is your main source of business, how much money are you losing just based on the loss of customer trust. And that is a really important thing to think about. If it is more than it would be to just, contract with a company like us, then definitely just want to go ahead and be proactive. You also have to look at, and that's just customer trust. So your payment processing company is also going to come back and be like, hey, we cannot allow you to process any payments until you get this fixed. They will freeze your accounts. They will not allow you to do that. So that can also be things like, if you have a brick and mortar store, are you then allowed to use that? Can you process any payments through that? Maybe you can't. So now you're dealing with the inability to process any payments at all, potentially. So you have a whole host of issues that come from just any kind of hack that can happen. So that's why it's always better to be proactive, because you just don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. And likely they're going to cost way more than what it would cost to just have some sort of preventative solution.
That is great. Thank you very much. And here is the question in the chat. How important is a good hosting provider when it comes to security? So
great question. Okay, so a lot of folks out there think that it's my host's fault that I got infected, or it's because of my host that these things are occurring, or my host should be responsible for fixing that. And that's just not the case. The way that we think about it is that you, as an online business owner, take on a responsibility for having your site online, and it is your responsibility to run that business. And part of that is ensuring that your customers are protected, and thus you need to have, a simple thing as a SSL certificate is a requirement to run an e-commerce business online. Not all people know that, and not all people practice that, but it is encrypting that information that is shared from that payment cart to the gateways, super critical, and that is one component of security. So when we encounter people that ask, how important is my host to my security, I simply ask, just make sure that you're comfortable with engaging with your host, because there might come an event where you will need a backup from them, a server backup, or even a website backup. And many hosts are getting smarter about where they store these backups. They're storing them in the cloud instead of on your server, so that when your server becomes infected, your backup doesn't also become infected. So I don't say that the onus lies on the hosting company. It does rely on that business owner who did decide to venture out into the wild west of the online web, because that is what it is.
there is another question there. I mean, it's quite similar. It says, if using shared hosting, I assume that no matter how much you take care of your own security, your site could be compromised by other sites on the same server. I think this is rather a hosting question. Would you be able to answer?
Yeah, so you're very accurate. Shared environments do expose you to a potential risk of cross-site contamination. And so does that mean that shared hosting is insecure? No. It simply means that you need to have elements in place to help you understand the state of your website. You need to have monitoring in place that will alert you to if anything happens. Not everybody can afford VPS hosting or dedicated hosting. That's just the name of the game. We don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to be spending on hosting. So shared environments do come with risk, just as anything does. It's just a matter of implementing that incident response plan and maintenance steps to ensure that you know what's happening with your site. If you're on a shared environment, don't just set it and forget it. And that's the same for your own account. Like, there's so many people just spin up new sites, add some plugins to that site, and then they just set it there with all their other business sites. That in itself can become a risk to you because you have this site that maybe you worked on like 6 months ago, but it's sitting in with all your other stuff. You're not checking it. And that could be the one little key factor that got them into your account because it is on the same shared environment. And that's not the host shared environment. That's just your shared environment. You've got multiple sites all housed within one ecosystem. And so that's why we do say, like, separate those valuable sites from the others, even if you're on shared. Make sure that things are separated.
That's
Just
cool. I
hope
feel
that answers.
secure. Look, I feel more secured already. So
Wonderful.
and there's a lot of information in the chat as well, but the time is running. And please, guys, if you have any questions, I would really like to answer all of those. Thank you, James, for asking all of those questions. Now, Crystal, I have a question for you. Running security and being exposed to all financial and technical data, what is your view on below? Should the security be recorded as a cost or an investment record in the accounting? And where is the case for it to become an investment?
Yeah, so I think of security costs as a strategic investment, meaning that I believe that this is money well spent because, as Kara mentioned, it can prevent you or help you, aid you in not having to incur additional costs associated with a potential incident. And so I think that in order to have that same thought process that I do and many people in the security space have, you have to look at how you define your spending. And so there's operating costs associated with running any business. And what happens when you mentally shift to call something a strategic investment, that's when you're thinking, what is this going to help me with in the future? Or how is this going to ensure that I can still make money going forward? And what that does is allows you to categorize your IT spend in a different fashion. And one part that I come to think about is absolutely what Kara talked about, the customer incident, but it is brand reputation and how. And you have to, what is the dollar amount that you put on your brand reputation? Is it that you're fine with the incident and no problem, my brand can absolutely bounce back from that? Then you know what? You can continue to situate security as a cost center. If your brand reputation is extremely important to you, like imagine Sakuri, for example. If we didn't actually do what we preach and we allowed ourselves to have an incident and the world found out about it, that potentially could be really problematic and very costly. And so it's important to us as a business online, because our brand reputation is so important, to put that spend for keeping our business secure in that strategic investment category. So that's how I like, as simple, like there are so many other components to how to categorize it as a strategic investment. However, we can just bring it right down to what is your brand reputation? What how bulletproof are you? Will it be fine? Will not that many people notice? Or will this become a PR issue? Will this become something that you have to deal with on Twitter? Will it become, the next greatest blog post that your competitor writes about you? What will it do to you? And how will that impact you? Depending upon what industry you're in, it could be substantial because of, let's just say, a GDPR rules or rules such as GDPR that exist in the world for privacy and security, that you could be slapped with a fine. And so that's kind of how you have to think about shifting out of IT spend into what can be more investment category as opposed to just part of doing business.
By this, we already answered even the last question that I prepared for today, which is like how security can be valuable to freelancers, small and medium enterprises, and WordPress agencies. And we also answered the question, and there was even a thread in the chat, how to actually sell the security to client. We saw that a number that like more like somewhere around 30% of small and medium enterprises are seems to be most vulnerable online because they don't understand the importance of security. They don't understand that it's not a cost, that it's an investment. They don't understand that their branding and everything that they're working on today might not exist tomorrow. So I would really ask everyone here of you, if you could give us your best hint, how actually we should promote knowledge about security and how to help small and medium enterprises to grow and not to be hacked. If you have any idea how we can spread this and make it as a one-liner, that would be awesome. Thank you very much.
I think that you have to start talking about security from the very beginning. Before, like, while the proposal is being written, you have to write it into it of, hey, you just spent all this money to build this great website. Now here's how you're going to ensure that it stays a great website into the future. And so I do believe that conversation starts early on. If you are a company that offers maintenance packages, wrap security into your maintenance package. That's what many of our agencies do today. So start the conversation early. Don't let it be an afterthought. Protect, like, it is a protection of that investment that they've just paid you to do. And web work is not cheap. I mean, like, thousands and thousands of dollars are spent building websites. And so imagine if you had to do that again and again and again, because you just didn't learn the first time that we need to talk about security from the beginning.
So it's a story, right? Tell me, Cara.
Oh, I was just going to say, I absolutely agree with Crystal. You have to start it immediately. Don't say, hey, I'm going to build your site. And in case you want some security, say, I'm going to build your website. I'm going to go ahead and protect your investment. You can put it like that. For people that might need it in more layperson's terms, you can even say, okay, you just built this beautiful house. Let's put some locks on it. Let's lock your doors. Let's lock your windows. Let's put bars on your windows, those kinds of things, so that it's far less likely that anybody's going to get in and, steal your cash box or whatever. So you definitely want to start it early, start frequently, talk to them about what they're doing. If they have questions about what you're doing, tell them, talk about things like, firewall, talk about what you've got for a reactive solution, because you want a proactive and a reactive solution, because this is security. Something will happen. The only way to guarantee that nothing's going to happen is to just simply not have a website. And in this day and age, if you're doing business, you need a website. That's just the way it is. So talk about proactive solutions, talk about reactive solutions, talk about the backups that you're going to take, talk about where you're going to have your backups. A lot of this is coming from a talk that I did about having a security plan in place. You need to have that kind of thing. So make sure that when you're selling this, talk to them about it, talk to them about what you're doing, and then actually know what your security plan is for each one of your clients.
We had a number of speakers earlier who were web developers and designers, but who were not very, who were not very into security field, and who would allow someone else to do the security for the client because they were not very sure what they were doing. If a designer is working on a website, so do you think, Cara, that a precondition for like delivering any website should be security in place or not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because part of it is, protecting your customers. Part of it is protecting your own brand, right? So if you have a bunch of customers and all of their websites are being hacked, suddenly that looks really bad on you, doesn't it? Why would anybody want to contract with you if it is found out that all of your customers have been getting hacked continually? So I absolutely think it's a precondition. I'm going to build your website. I'm going to protect your investment. Done.
So we should have like a badge. None of my websites were hacked. So
Right.
Or like this many days since one of my websites has been hacked.
yeah, exactly. So we need to start giving some badges for security and safety. Hey, are there any more questions that you would like to ask our guests or perhaps some of the attendees? Well, I think we have explored the web security, whether it's a cost or an investment. It seems to be an investment, and I'm very happy to hear that because it's an ongoing effort. I'm very happy that both people and different type of information will be safe online. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Kara. I hope to see you one more time this year, perhaps in the end of the year. So we'll discuss
Would
what
love to.
actually happened in 2022, and let's see where the security is. Also, if anyone would like to follow Crystal or Kara online, they're both on Twitter and LinkedIn, and they'll be more than happy to answer if you have any questions. And that's all, folks, for today. We will not have more discussion about security. Thank you for joining us today. And then again, we meet somewhere mid-September still to engage with dates and organize the speakers. And we will be talking about females in tech. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you next time. See you.
Thanks, Aya. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.